The sky was dark, and the wind howled through the trees. Rain poured down, turning the forest floor into thick, slippery mud. A group of people in raincoats moved quickly, flashlights in hand. "Eli, Eli," a woman shouted, her voice shaking. "We're close," one of the search and rescue officers said. "Keep your eyes open." It was after midnight. 10-year-old Eli had gone missing hours ago during a family hike in the mountains. He had wandered off the trail, and now the storm was making it nearly impossible to find him. Suddenly, a sharp bark cut through the rain. "Did you hear that?" One of the rescuers stopped. Another bark followed, louder this time, urgent and wild. "Over there," someone yelled, pointing toward the trees. The group ran toward the sound, stumbling over rocks and roots. The barking grew faster, louder, almost like the dog was calling them, pleading with them to hurry. They pushed past a wall of wet branches and froze. There, at the bottom of a small ravine, lay Eli. He wasn't moving. And beside him, curled up tightly around the boy's body, was a golden retriever, muddy, wet, and shaking. It was Scout. "Oh my God," one rescuer whispered. "The dog's been keeping him warm." Scout lifted his head and barked once, weakly. His eyes were full of fear, but also hope. His front paws were scraped and bleeding, like he had dug into the dirt, maybe trying to keep Eli from sliding farther down the slope. "Call it in," the lead rescuer shouted. "We found the boy. He's alive. Barely. Get a stretcher and oxygen down here now." As the medics worked, Scout didn't move. He refused to leave Eli's side, even when they tried to push him back. He whined softly and licked the boy's cheek. One rescuer gently placed a hand on the dog's back. "He's not just a pet," she said quietly. "He's this kid's guardian angel." They lifted Eli carefully onto the stretcher. His skin was cold, and his lips were turning blue. But his heartbeat was still there, weak but steady. As they carried Eli up the hill, Scout tried to follow but stumbled. His legs shook under him. A rescuer picked him up, cradling him like a baby. "You did good, boy," he whispered. "You saved him." Back at the hospital, Eli's parents waited in silence, their hands locked together. The doors burst open. The doctors rushed Eli inside. Behind them came the rescuer, carrying Scout in his arms. "Your son is alive," the doctor told them. "He's in critical condition, but we have a chance." "And the dog?" Eli's mom asked, tears in her eyes. The rescuer smiled gently. "He never left him, not for 1 second." Hours passed. Finally, the doctor returned with news. "Eli's stable. He was hypothermic and dehydrated, but the dog's body heat helped keep him alive long enough for us to help." Eli's father wiped his eyes and looked at Scout, now wrapped in a warm blanket. "That dog saved our son's life," he whispered. Scout wagged his tail weakly and gave a soft, tired bark. That night, as Eli slept in his hospital bed, Scout lay curled at his feet. Machines beeped. The room was quiet, except for the soft sound of the rain fading outside. No one noticed the small tremble in Scout's chest. No one saw the first sign. Not yet, but it was there. A silent warning. A ticking clock. The dog had saved the boy, but something was wrong with the dog. Eli woke up to the sound of a soft tapping on the window. He blinked and slowly turned his head. His hospital room was bright, with the morning sun shining through the blinds. But it wasn't the sunlight that caught his attention. It was Scout. The golden retriever was sitting by the window, his tail wagging gently as he looked inside. The dog's eyes were full of love, loyalty, and something deeper, a silent promise. Eli smiled weakly. His chest ached, and his head felt foggy from the medicines, but seeing Scout made everything feel better. He reached out a hand, and the dog stood up and gently placed his paws on the windowsill, as if saying, "I'm here." "Scout," Eli whispered, his voice hoarse. "You came back for me." Scout's tail wagged faster, And Eli laughed quietly. He had missed that sound. The soft, comforting thump of Scout's tail. No one understood Eli like Scout did. The dog had been with him through every hospital stay, every difficult moment. And now Scout was here, sitting by his side, just like always. A few days later, Eli was allowed to go home. His parents helped him pack up his things, and they told him the good news. His heart surgery had gone well. But despite the good news, Eli still felt nervous. His heart wasn't completely healed, and there was a lot of unknown ahead. Would he be able to play like he used to? Would he ever be normal again? The thought made his stomach twist. But then he remembered something. Scout. The dog had always been there for him, and now he would help him through this too. When they finally arrived home, Eli was greeted by the familiar smells of his house, the scent of his mother's cooking, the smell of fresh sheets, and most of all, the warm, comforting smell of Scout. As Eli stepped through the door, Scout immediately ran up to him, tail wagging. The dog barked happily, almost as if he was saying, "You're home. You're safe." Eli kneeled down, and Scout immediately put his head on Eli's lap, looking up at him with soft, trusting eyes. Eli stroked the dog's fur, feeling a deep sense of peace settle over him. "You're my best friend, Scout," Eli whispered. "You're always here when I need you." The next few weeks went by in a blur of doctor's appointments, physical therapy, and time spent at home. But every day, no matter what, Scout was always there. Whether Eli was feeling tired, frustrated, or scared, Scout was always by his side. When Eli had a bad day, the dog would curl up beside him, never leaving his side. And on days when Eli felt better, they would play in the yard, Eli throwing the ball, and Scout chasing it like there was no tomorrow. It didn't matter that Eli had to rest often, or that he couldn't do everything he wanted to do. With Scout by his side, everything felt possible. The dog was his constant companion, his friend, his protector, and his heart's greatest comfort. One afternoon, while they were playing in the backyard, Eli's dad walked out with a big smile on his face. "Guess what, Eli?" he said. "I got a call from the hospital today. Your heart's doing really well. They said you're healing faster than expected." Eli's face lit up. "Really? That's awesome." He turned to Scout, who was chasing a butterfly in the garden. "See, Scout, we're going to get through this. Together." Scout barked in response, running over to Eli and nudging him with his nose. Eli laughed and hugged the dog. "You're the best, buddy. We make a great team." As the weeks turned into months, Eli's condition slowly improved. But there was one thing that remained constant: his bond with Scout. Through every challenge, every fear, and every struggle, the dog was always there. He had saved Eli's life once, but now Scout was giving him something even more precious: hope. And for the first time since his heart surgery, Eli began to believe that maybe, just maybe, things would be okay. The days passed slowly, but with each one, Eli grew a little stronger. His doctors were impressed by how quickly he was healing. Still, Eli knew that his heart was fragile. He had to be careful, but he was determined not to let it stop him from enjoying life. And as long as Scout was with him, he felt like anything was possible. Every morning, Scout would jump onto Eli's bed to wake him up. The dog's wet nose would nudge Eli's face, and Eli would laugh, pushing him away gently. Scout's tail would wag, as if saying, "It's time to get up, buddy." One day, Eli was sitting on the couch, reading a book. Scout was lying beside him, his head resting on Eli's feet. The quiet house felt peaceful, but something felt a little different today. Scout wasn't his usual energetic self. The dog's tail was still, and he kept looking up at Eli with concerned eyes. Eli noticed it too. Scout had always been full of energy, always ready for a game of fetch or a run in the yard. But today, he seemed quieter, almost tired. "Scout," Eli said softly, reaching down to pet the dog's head. "Are you okay?" Scout's eyes softened, and he nuzzled Eli's hand. But then Eli felt something strange, a slight tremor in Scout's body, like the dog was shivering, even though the room was warm. Eli frowned, his heart racing. "Scout, are you sick?" The dog's eyes looked back at him with a kind of understanding, as if Scout knew what Eli was thinking. Later that afternoon, Eli went with his parents to the vet. Scout wasn't acting like his usual self, and Eli was worried. He kept talking to the dog, trying to reassure him, but inside, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The vet was kind and gentle as she examined Scout. "He seems a little tired, but nothing too serious for now," the vet said with a warm smile. "Maybe he's just adjusting to being home, or maybe he's just getting a bit older." Eli nodded, but he didn't feel relieved. Something in his gut told him that Scout was trying to tell him something. It was like there was a connection between them, something deeper than words. That night, Eli was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. He couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he could see Scout's tired eyes, his slow movements, and that strange trembling. It bothered him. Just then, Scout walked into the room and jumped up onto Eli's bed. The dog curled up next to him, resting his head on Eli's pillow. "Scout," Eli whispered, rubbing the dog's back. "You've always been there for me. You saved my life. I'm not going to let anything happen to you." The dog let out a soft sigh, and Eli could feel the warmth of his body against his own. It was comforting, but also a little sad. Something wasn't right. Eli didn't want to think about it, but he couldn't ignore it anymore. The next morning, Eli's mom came into his room looking worried. "Eli," she said gently, "I think we should take Scout to the vet again. I know it's hard, but we need to make sure he's okay." Eli didn't want to admit it, but deep down he knew. It wasn't just a cold or exhaustion. Scout was sick, and that feeling of connection he had with the dog, like they shared something more than just companionship, made it even harder to face. But Eli wasn't alone. Scout wasn't alone. They had always been there for each other, and now it was Eli's turn to take care of his best friend. At the vet's office, the truth was harder to hear than Eli had expected. "It's heart disease," the vet said softly. "It's rare, but dogs can get it. It's the same kind of thing Eli has, only for dogs." Eli's heart sank. He couldn't believe it. Scout, the dog who had saved him, who had always been by his side, was sick too. "Can we help him?" Eli asked, his voice trembling. The vet nodded. "We can treat him, but it's going to be tough. It's not curable, but we can manage it. He's a fighter." Eli nodded, holding back tears. He wasn't sure how he would handle this. Scout had always been his protector, his strength. But now it was Eli's turn to be the strong one, for Scout. As they left the vet, Eli looked down at Scout, who was walking beside him, a little slower than usual. But Scout's eyes still had that spark. "I'm here, Eli. Always." And that was enough for now. Eli put his arm around Scout's shoulders, just like Scout had always done for him. Together, they would face whatever came next. Days turned into weeks, and Eli and Scout's bond only grew stronger. The two of them were inseparable, like two halves of the same heart. Eli's heart condition still required regular checkups, but with each passing day, he felt a little better. He was starting to do things he hadn't been able to do before, like running in the yard with Scout or riding his bike around the neighborhood. Scout was always there, running beside him, his tail wagging excitedly. But Scout's health, on the other hand, was not improving. Despite the vet's treatments, the dog's condition seemed to worsen. Scout's once vibrant energy had faded. He slept more often and had trouble keeping up with Eli when they played. But Scout still followed Eli around the house, never leaving his side. He seemed to be holding on for Eli. One morning, Eli was sitting on the front porch, watching the sun rise over the trees. Scout was lying next to him, his head resting on Eli's feet. Eli smiled and scratched behind Scout's ears. "You've been so strong for me, haven't you?" Eli said softly. Scout's eyes blinked slowly, and the dog gave a soft, tired bark in response. Eli's parents had been worried for weeks now. His mother, especially, had noticed that Scout wasn't eating much. He seemed weak, his breathing shallow. But when they took Scout back to the vet, they were told that the dog's condition was only getting worse. The heart disease was taking its toll, and there wasn't much more they could do. Eli knew that time was running out for his best friend. He had seen it in Scout's eyes. The tiredness, the sadness. Scout wasn't just sick. He was fighting to stay alive, just like Eli had fought when he was younger. And now, Scout was starting to lose the battle. One evening, as Eli sat with Scout in the living room, he noticed something different. Scout was lying still, his body trembling. His eyes were half closed, and his breathing was shallow. Eli's heart dropped. He ran to his parents. "Mom, Dad, I think something's wrong. Scout isn't moving. He won't wake up." His parents rushed into the room, and they both knelt by Scout. Eli's father felt the dog's chest. "His heartbeat is weak," he whispered, his voice trembling. Eli's mother wiped her eyes. "It's time, isn't it? We've been trying to prepare, but it's so hard." Eli's eyes filled with tears, but he didn't speak. He just sat there, holding Scout's paw as the dog breathed in slow, shallow breaths. He could feel it. He could feel that Scout was trying to hold on for just a little longer. But Eli knew his best friend was tired. Scout had been there for him through everything. And now, it was Eli's turn to be there for him. Later that night, Eli sat alone in the backyard, Scout resting his head on Eli's lap. The stars shone brightly overhead. Eli gently stroked the dog's fur, tears falling quietly down his cheeks. He whispered, "I'm not ready to say goodbye. But I love you, Scout. I love you so much." For a long time, Eli stayed there, not moving, just holding his best friend close. He didn't know how long they sat together, but when Eli's father came outside, his voice was soft and gentle. "Eli," he said quietly, "Scout's in pain. He's not going to make it through the night. We have to let him go." Eli nodded, even though it hurt more than anything he had ever felt. He knew this day would come, but he wasn't prepared for the ache in his heart. "Can we stay with him?" Eli asked, his voice barely a whisper. His father knelt beside him. "Of course. We'll stay together, all of us." As the night wore on, Eli held Scout in his arms. His heart was breaking, but he knew that Scout had given him everything he could. The dog had been his protector, his friend, and his greatest comfort. And now it was time to let him rest. At the end, Scout took one final breath. Eli whispered, "I'll never forget you, buddy. I promise." The next morning, Eli's parents helped him bury Scout in the backyard, under the big oak tree that they had always played under. Eli carved the dog's name into a wooden plaque and placed it on the grave, a tribute to the dog who had given him so much. Eli stood there for a long time, his hands pressed together, saying a quiet goodbye. But inside, he knew that Scout would always be with him, in his heart, forever. It had been a few days since Scout passed away, but the grief didn't seem to leave Eli. It felt like the world had become a little colder, a little quieter, without the sound of Scout's paws on the floor or his happy bark echoing through the house. Eli spent most of his time in his room, holding onto the memories of his best friend. He remembered the times Scout had kept him company when he was sick, the times they'd run together in the backyard, and the way Scout would curl up beside him at night to keep him warm. It felt impossible to move forward without him. But then, one evening, Eli's father sat down beside him, a serious look on his face. He had a piece of paper in his hands. It was from the vet. "Eli," his father began softly, "I think it's time we talk about something. Something important." Eli looked up, confused. "What is it, Dad?" His father hesitated for a moment, then handed him the paper. Eli unfolded it slowly, his eyes scanning the words. It was a letter from the vet, describing the results of Scout's final tests. "We wanted to know what happened with Scout," Eli's father continued. "So we asked the vet to run some tests after he passed. We were trying to understand what caused his heart disease." Eli felt his heart skip a beat. He didn't want to think about Scout's sickness anymore. It was too painful. But his father was already speaking again. "Eli, it turns out that Scout's heart disease was a lot like yours. The vet says that some dogs can have a heart condition just like humans do. And it's possible that Scout's condition, even though it was rare, might have started earlier than we knew." Eli blinked, trying to understand what his father was saying. "You mean Scout had the same thing I have?" His father nodded slowly. "Yes, but here's something else. The vet says that dogs with heart disease like this often don't show the signs until it's too late. Scout might have known something was wrong, even before we did. Maybe that's why he stayed so close to you. He was looking out for you." Eli's mind raced. He had always known there was something special about the connection between him and Scout, but hearing this made everything feel more complicated. "That means Scout was sick because of me?" Eli asked quietly, his voice filled with confusion and guilt. His father shook his head quickly. "No, Eli. Scout loved you. He stayed by your side because he cared for you, not because of your condition. Sometimes things just happen that we don't understand, but Scout's love for you was real, and that's what matters." Eli felt a small sense of comfort at his father's words, but the sadness didn't go away. He couldn't help but feel like he had failed Scout, like there was something he could have done to save him. "I miss him, Dad," Eli whispered. "I miss him so much." "I know, buddy," his father said, pulling him into a hug. "I miss him too. But Scout will always be with us, in our hearts." Over the next few days, Eli thought a lot about what his father had said. He still missed Scout, and the hole in his heart didn't seem to get any smaller. But the more he thought about Scout's love for him, the more he understood. Scout had given him everything he had. He had protected him, loved him, and stayed by his side through everything. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Eli knew that life had to go on, even if it was hard. He had his own battles to fight. His heart condition still needed care, and he would have to face that reality every day. But he also knew that Scout had taught him something important. Scout had shown him the power of love and loyalty, and how far those things could go. Eli looked at the picture of Scout that his mom had framed for him, smiling through his tears. "Thank you, buddy," Eli whispered. "I'll never forget you, and I'll keep fighting, just like you did." The next morning, Eli went outside into the backyard, where Scout used to play. He stood by the big oak tree where they had buried Scout. And for a long time, he just stood there, letting the memories flood over him. Finally, Eli knelt down and touched the earth where his dog had been laid to rest. "Scout," he whispered, "I promise I'll keep going. I'll be okay. I won't forget you." As the weeks passed, Eli slowly began to feel the weight of his loss lifting, though the sadness never completely disappeared. Scout had been more than just a pet. He had been a constant presence in Eli's life, a protector and a friend. Even now, the house felt emptier without Scout's wagging tail and playful bark. But Eli was learning how to live without him. Eli's parents noticed that he was starting to spend more time outside. He would sit in the backyard, near the oak tree where they had buried Scout, and just think. Some days he would talk to Scout out loud, telling him everything that had happened since he passed. Other days he would simply sit in silence, finding comfort in the stillness. One afternoon, as Eli was sitting outside, his mom came to join him. She smiled gently as she sat beside him. "I've been thinking," she said, "maybe it's time we start doing some things to honor Scout. He was such a big part of our lives. He deserves to be remembered." Eli looked at her, his heart aching. "What do you mean, Mom?" "Well, we could start by planting a garden," she suggested. "Maybe some flowers around Scout's resting place. It would be a nice way to keep him close to us." Eli smiled softly, his heart warming at the thought. I like that idea. I'll help. We could plant his favorite flowers, the ones that always bloomed in the yard when he was still here. And so that's exactly what they did. Together, they spent the afternoon planting colorful flowers in the garden, surrounding Scout's resting place. Eli chose bright marigolds, sunflowers, and daffodils, flowers that made him think of Scout's joyful energy and warmth. As they worked, Eli's mom shared stories about how Scout had always loved running through the yard, chasing the butterflies that hovered around the flowers. Scout would have loved this, Eli said, wiping a tear from his cheek. His mom smiled, her eyes misty. He would have, sweetheart. But I think he would be happy knowing we're taking care of this place, and every time we see these flowers, we'll remember him. After they finished planting, Eli stood back and admired the little garden they had made. The bright flowers swayed gently in the breeze, and Eli felt a sense of peace. It was as if Scout was still there, watching over them, just like he always had. The next few days felt lighter for Eli. He started to go back to school, though he was nervous about how things might feel. His friends had been supportive, but he wasn't sure if he could talk about Scout without getting emotional. When he arrived at school, though, he found that his friends had already heard about Scout. They all gathered around Eli and gave him comforting hugs. I'm so sorry, Eli, his friend Alex said. Scout was the best dog. He always made us laugh when we came over. Eli smiled through his tears. Yeah, he really was. He was the best friend I could ever ask for. That afternoon, Eli felt something unexpected. For the first time in weeks, he laughed, really laughed. His friends had been telling funny stories about Scout, and Eli found himself remembering the good times. The way Scout would chase after the tennis ball, or the time he managed to sneak an entire sandwich from the kitchen counter. It felt good to remember those moments. Scout made everything feel better, Eli said quietly. He always knew how to cheer me up. His friends nodded in agreement. He'll always be part of us, Alex said. You'll always have those memories. When Eli got home that evening, he went to the backyard and stood by the garden they had planted. The flowers were in full bloom now, their colors bright and beautiful. Eli knelt down and touched one of the marigolds gently. Thanks for being with me, Scout, he whispered. You made me stronger. Just then, a soft breeze blew through the yard, and for a moment, Eli felt like Scout was still there, watching over him. As the days continued, Eli began to feel more at peace. He still missed Scout terribly, but he was learning how to hold on to the memories without letting the sadness overwhelm him. Scout had taught him so many important lessons about loyalty, love, and the strength to keep going, even when it felt impossible. One afternoon, Eli's dad sat down beside him in the backyard, where the flowers bloomed bright and beautiful. I'm really proud of you, Eli, he said softly. I know it's been hard, but you're handling everything with so much strength. Scout would be proud of you too. Eli smiled, looking at the flowers and feeling a warmth in his heart. I know, he said quietly. I'll keep going. For Scout, it had been a few months since Scout passed away, and life was slowly starting to feel normal again. Eli was still sad at times, especially when he saw the empty space in the backyard where Scout used to play. But the flowers they had planted around Scout's resting place were blooming beautifully now, reminding Eli of the love and joy Scout had brought into their lives. One bright Saturday morning, Eli woke up early, feeling a sense of peace. The sun was shining, and the air smelled fresh. It was a perfect day to get outside and do something new. He had been thinking a lot about how much Scout had taught him. Not just about love and loyalty, but about the power of living in the moment and making the best of life, no matter what. As Eli stepped into the backyard, he noticed something strange. There was a small, scruffy dog standing at the edge of the garden. The dog was wagging its tail, looking at Eli with big, hopeful eyes. It looked a little lost, with a thin coat and a sad, hungry face. Eli froze. For a moment, he thought it was some kind of sign from Scout, like the dog was sent to remind him of the love they had shared. But as the dog stepped closer, Eli realized it was just a stray, probably wandering in search of food or shelter. "Hey there," Eli said softly, crouching down. "Are you lost?" The dog wagged its tail again, taking a few careful steps toward Eli. It was skinny and dirty, but there was something kind about its eyes. Eli's heart went out to the dog. He had always loved animals, especially dogs, and seeing one in need reminded him of Scout's gentle spirit. Without thinking, he reached out a hand to pet the dog's head. It wasn't long before the dog started licking his fingers, as if grateful for the attention. "Come on, buddy," Eli whispered. "Let's get you something to eat." He ran inside to grab some food from the kitchen. When he returned, he found the dog sitting patiently by the back door, looking up at him with those big eyes. Eli poured some food into a bowl and set it down. The dog immediately started eating, tail wagging happily. Eli watched the dog for a few moments, a gentle smile on his face. He could see the dog was still hungry, but he also noticed how content it seemed just being there with him. For the first time in a long while, Eli felt a warmth in his heart. Maybe this was a way to help heal, to give another dog the love that Scout had shared with him. Over the next few days, Eli took care of the stray dog. He named him Buddy because he reminded him of the friendship he had shared with Scout. Buddy wasn't as energetic as Scout had been, but he had a calm, quiet nature that made Eli feel safe. They spent time together in the yard, and Eli even taught Buddy a few simple tricks, like sitting and staying. One evening, as Eli sat outside with Buddy, he thought back to the day he first met the dog. He had been so sad and lost, and now, here he was, caring for a new companion. It was clear to Eli that Buddy was meant to be a part of his life. That night, Eli's parents sat down with him to talk. They had seen how much the dog had helped Eli, and they could tell Buddy had found a special place in their family's heart. "We're proud of you, Eli," his mom said, giving him a gentle hug. "Taking in Buddy shows so much kindness. I think Scout would be happy that you're helping another dog." Eli smiled, feeling a sense of peace. He had never imagined that another dog could fill the space Scout had left, but Buddy was teaching him something important. Love wasn't about replacing what was lost. It was about finding new ways to share the love you had to give. As time went on, Eli and Buddy became inseparable. They did everything together. Whether it was running in the backyard, going for walks around the neighborhood, or just sitting quietly together, Eli found that the sadness he had carried around with him was starting to fade. He wasn't forgetting Scout, but he was learning to open his heart again. One afternoon, Eli stood by the oak tree, where Scout was buried, with Buddy by his side. The flowers they had planted in Scout's memory were still vibrant, filling the air with sweet fragrances. Eli crouched down and gently touched the ground where Scout rested. "Thank you, Scout," Eli whispered, "for everything you taught me. I'll always remember you." Buddy sat next to him, as if understanding, his tail gently swaying in the breeze. Eli smiled and stood up, looking down at Buddy. "And thank you, Buddy. You've helped me heal." With a sense of calm, Eli walked back toward the house, Buddy trotting happily beside him. The pain of losing Scout would always be there, but now, Eli knew that love didn't end when someone was gone. It lived on in the memories and the new beginnings. As the months passed, Eli and Buddy became the best of friends. They went everywhere together. Buddy had filled the emptiness Scout had left behind, but it wasn't about replacing Scout. It was about finding new ways to love and be loved. Eli's heart was no longer heavy with sadness. He had learned that healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant growing and finding new paths forward. One day, as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Eli stood on the porch with Buddy by his side. It had been a long day, and Eli was feeling calm and content. He had just come back from a walk with Buddy, and the dog was resting at his feet, his tail softly wagging. Eli thought about how much his life had changed. He had faced so many challenges: his heart condition, losing Scout, and learning to cope with the pain. But through it all, Buddy had been there for him. It was as though the universe had brought Buddy into his life when he needed him most. Buddy didn't replace Scout. He helped Eli heal in his own special way. Eli's parents had noticed the change in him too. He was no longer withdrawn or sad all the time. He laughed more, talked more, and was excited about life again. His father had even noticed that Eli had started taking better care of his own health, attending doctor's appointments, and following the advice to stay strong. "You've been such a help to us, Buddy," Eli said one evening, as he stroked the dog's soft fur. "I don't think I could have gotten through this without you." Buddy looked up at him with his big, trusting eyes, his tail thumping the ground in response. Eli smiled, his heart full of love and gratitude. The next day, Eli's mom suggested they go to the park, a place where Scout had loved to run and play. "I think it might help," she said gently. "You've been doing so well, and I think Scout would be happy to see you out there, enjoying life again." Eli nodded, understanding. He didn't expect the park to bring back all the memories of Scout, but he knew it was time to visit the place that had held so many joyful moments. It was time to honor Scout's memory, but also to celebrate how far he had come. When they arrived at the park, Eli felt a mix of emotions. There were memories of Scout, running freely through the fields, chasing after frisbees and tennis balls. But there was something different this time. This time, Eli wasn't sad. He had Buddy by his side, and they were ready to make new memories. "Come on, Buddy," Eli said, his voice full of excitement. "Let's make our own fun." Eli threw a ball, and Buddy sprinted after it, tail wagging with joy. Eli laughed as Buddy returned the ball, eager to play again. It was as though the park had become a place of new beginnings. The air was fresh, and the sounds of laughter filled the space. As they played, Eli couldn't help but think about how lucky he was. He had loved and lost, but he had also learned so much about strength and love. He had learned that life wasn't always easy, but with love, support, and the willingness to keep moving forward, anything was possible. By the end of the day, Eli sat on a bench, watching Buddy happily panting beside him. The sun was beginning to set, just like it had on that first day when Eli had found peace in his heart. But this time, there was a new sense of hope in the air. "Thank you, Scout," Eli whispered to the sky. "I'll never forget you. You gave me the strength to keep going." Buddy nudged him gently, as if to say, "I'm here too." Eli smiled and petted Buddy's head. "And I'm so grateful for you, Buddy. You helped me find my way." As the sky turned dark, Eli and Buddy made their way home. The road ahead was still uncertain, but Eli knew one thing for sure. He had a heart full of love to give, and he wasn't afraid of the future anymore. The journey of healing had been long, but Eli had learned that love was stronger than pain, and that every ending could bring a new beginning. The love Scout had shared with him would always be a part of him, and Buddy would continue to fill his days with joy. Life, with all its twists and turns, was beautiful again. And so, Eli and Buddy walked forward into the future, side by side, ready for whatever came next.